You have to understand something about human dynamics that most people never truly grasp. Silence is louder than words when it's used correctly. In the modern dating world, we're addicted to the instant gratification of sending a text. You feel something: curiosity, frustration, desire, anxiety, and your fingers instantly reach for the phone. It's almost subconscious. You're not thinking about the bigger picture, you're thinking about the immediate relief of doing something. But that's the exact trap that kills attraction and weakens your position without you even realizing it. When she's pulling away, ignoring you, or giving you minimal effort, every text you send is essentially broadcasting a single message: I'm still here, I'm still available, and you still have access to me no matter how you treat me. That's not confidence, that's desperation dressed up as effort. And here's the harsh truth: desperation repels. It doesn't matter how well you word it, how casual you try to sound, or how short the message is. If the energy behind it is seeking validation, she feels it. People are extremely good at reading the intent behind communication, even if they can't articulate it. Silence, on the other hand, sends an entirely different signal. When you stop reaching out, you shift the psychological dynamic. You are no longer playing the role of the chaser. You're no longer validating her position as the one who gets to decide whether this connection moves forward. You remove yourself from that invisible leash she's holding. And here's where it gets interesting: when the source of attention suddenly goes quiet, human curiosity kicks in. She starts wondering, why hasn't he texted? Did he lose interest? Did something happen? Is he talking to someone else? You've triggered a mental shift without saying a single word. This isn't just about dating. This is about a principle that operates in every human interaction. The less you push, the more people lean in. Think about marketing. The most desirable brands aren't blasting you with needy reminders every second. They create scarcity. They create mystique. They let you come to them. Your personal value works the same way. If you're constantly in someone's face, they stop appreciating your presence because it's no longer special. It's just there, like background noise. But if you disappear for a moment, suddenly your absence is felt. Now, let's address the fear that comes with silence. Because I know exactly what's running through your head. But what if she forgets about me? What if she moves on? What if she thinks I don't care? Those questions are rooted in insecurity. And here's the tough pill to swallow. If someone can forget you just because you stopped texting for a while, they were never truly invested in you in the first place. All you did by staying silent was speed up the reveal of where you actually stood in their life. You didn't cause them to lose interest. You simply stopped feeding an illusion. Silence also gives you space to reset emotionally. Right now, you might not even be aware of how much mental energy you've been giving away. Every unanswered text isn't just ignored. It's a small rejection, and those rejections pile up in your subconscious, making you feel smaller, weaker, and more uncertain about your worth. When you choose silence, you stop exposing yourself to that constant drip of rejection. You reclaim control over when and how you communicate, and that's a massive psychological shift in your favor. Here's another layer to this: words are cheap. Anyone can type, "I'm fine without you." But those words are meaningless if you're still initiating contact every few hours. True confidence doesn't announce itself, it's implied through action. When you go silent, you're not telling her you're fine without her. You're showing it, you're demonstrating that your world doesn't orbit around her attention. That subtle display of self-sufficiency is far more powerful than any speech you could write. I want you to think back to a time when someone suddenly stopped giving you attention. Didn't it bother you? Didn't you wonder why? Didn't you feel the urge to reach out just to get that old feeling back? That's exactly what silence does. It creates a gap that the other person feels compelled to fill. The beauty is, you don't have to manipulate, lie, or play games. You're simply choosing not to participate in a dynamic that isn't serving you. That's not coldness, that's self-respect. But here's the critical distinction. Silence is not about punishment. It's not about giving someone the silent treatment out of spite. It's about making a conscious choice to stop investing energy where it's not being reciprocated. If you do it out of anger, it still smells like desperation. It still says, I'm doing this because I want you to chase me. But when you do it out of self-respect, it's different. It's calm, it's unbothered. It says, I don't need to chase because I know my value. You have to be okay with whatever the silence reveals. Sometimes it will pull them back in. Other times it will confirm that they were never truly committed. Both outcomes are wins. Why? Because in either case, you stop wasting time on someone who doesn't match your energy. That's how you protect your dignity. That's how you keep your power. And make no mistake, power in relationships isn't about control over someone else. It's about control over yourself. When you master the art of silence, you master the art of self-restraint. You no longer react to every emotional impulse. You start thinking long-term instead of chasing short-term comfort. That discipline changes everything, not just in dating, but in your career, your friendships, your entire life. People feel the difference when they can't pull you around with emotional strings. Now, I know this isn't easy. The first few days of silence will feel like withdrawal from a drug. You'll catch yourself staring at your phone, checking their social media, wondering if you should just send one quick text. To break the tension, that's your old pattern trying to pull you back into the loop. You need to hold the line. Because the moment you break that silence without a genuine reason, you erase all the psychological impact you've built. You reset the clock. And now, instead of wondering where you went, she knows you'll always come back with enough time. That kills the mystery instantly. So how do you make it easier? You redirect that energy. Every time you feel the urge to text, do something productive for yourself. Hit the gym, work on a project, learn a skill. Go out and live your life so fully that you don't have time to obsess over one person's response rate. That's the deeper message of silence. It's not just about her. It's about you reclaiming your focus and investing it where it can grow. Remember, attention is currency. You can spend it recklessly, or you can invest it wisely. When you text out of desperation, you're throwing your attention into a black hole, getting nothing in return. When you hold your attention back, you keep your value high. And in the eyes of others, that restraint makes you far more magnetic than constant availability ever could. Silence is a statement. It says, I know what I bring to the table. I don't have to beg you to see it. And when that message is sent without a single word, it's impossible to ignore. So the next time you feel that overwhelming urge to reach for your phone, stop and ask yourself, am I sending this text to genuinely connect, or am I sending it to soothe my own insecurity? If it's the latter, close the app, put the phone down, and let silence do what desperation never will. Make them realize your worth. Because here's the truth, you don't lose people by not texting them. You only lose the ones who are never going to stay. And those are the easiest ones to let go of. There's a reason luxury brands never go on clearance. There's a reason the most in-demand events have limited seats. And there's a reason people pay more for something they can't easily get. It's because human nature is wired to value scarcity. We're drawn to what feels rare, to what we can't just pick up whenever we want. This isn't just economics, it's psychology. And in relationships, the same law applies. When you're constantly texting her, constantly available, constantly making sure she knows you're thinking about her, you strip away that sense of scarcity. You flood the market with your presence, and just like anything else that's oversupplied, the perceived value drops fast. Now here's the part most people don't like to hear. It doesn't matter how amazing you are, how funny you are, or how deep your conversations are. If she feels like she can get your attention anytime she wants without effort, it stops feeling valuable. People may never say this out loud, but they behave this way instinctively. Think about your own life. When was the last time you truly appreciated something you could have whenever you wanted? The irony is that when you like someone, your first instinct is to give them more of yourself. You want them to know you care, to feel secure, to see that you're interested. But from her perspective, there's no tension, no mystery, no challenge in that. It's all already hers. And people don't chase what's already theirs. They chase what they might lose. This doesn't mean you play games or deliberately withhold affection to manipulate someone. That's not confidence. That's insecurity in disguise. What I'm talking about is creating a natural, authentic scarcity by simply not overextending yourself. You have your own life, your own priorities, your own time that's valuable. You share it when it makes sense, not just to keep someone's attention. When you remove the constant stream of messages, you're not disappearing completely. You're just making your presence something she has to notice. She has to think about you. She has to wonder what you're doing. That wondering is powerful because curiosity is the beginning of desire. When the mind starts filling in blanks, it creates emotional engagement. The scarcity principle also explains why people suddenly value things more once they feel they might lose them. If you've ever been in a relationship where the other person seemed indifferent until you pulled back, you've seen this in action. It's not that they suddenly realized you're amazing. They already knew that on some level. It's that the comfort of knowing you'd always be there was removed. The certainty was replaced with uncertainty, and uncertainty is intoxicating when it comes to attraction. It's also worth noting that scarcity isn't about absence for the sake of absence. It's about meaningful presence. When you do interact, the quality of that interaction has to be high. You can't be scarce and bland. You have to make your moments together memorable so that when you step away, there's something worth missing. This is where most people fail. They think being scarce is enough. But if you're not bringing anything special to the table, the absence won't be felt. Scarcity only works when the thing being withheld is actually valuable. So here's where the deeper philosophy comes in. Your value isn't just in what you give to her. It's in how you live without her. If your life is empty and your attention is the only thing you have to offer, pulling back will just create space filled with nothing. But if your life is full of purpose, of growth, of passion, then your absence will feel like the loss of something rare and vibrant. You're not just a person she texts. You're a whole experience she's missing out on when you're not around. This also ties into self-respect. If you're constantly available, you're sending a silent message that your time and energy aren't that valuable. But when you're selective, when you allow someone into your space on your terms, you're communicating that your attention is earned, not owed. That's not arrogance, it's boundaries. And boundaries are incredibly attractive because they signal that you're a person with standards. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I hold back and she just moves on? Here's the uncomfortable truth. If she moves on just because you're not constantly in her face, she wasn't invested enough to begin with. Your over-availability wasn't keeping her. It was delaying the inevitable, and delaying rejection isn't the same as building attraction. It's just prolonging a losing game. Scarcity also flips the emotional script. Right now, if you're always texting her, you're training her to expect you to make the effort. You're teaching her that you're the one who initiates, who closes the gap, who keeps the connection alive. But when you pull back, the roles shift. Now she's the one noticing the gap, feeling the absence, wondering why things have changed. And that wondering is what makes people take action. One of the most powerful things you can do is let someone feel your absence without warning. Not in a dramatic, I'm blocking you kind of way. Just in a calm, quiet, self-contained way where you simply get on with your life. No announcements, no emotional speeches, just space. The lack of explanation actually deepens the effect because it leaves room for her to project her own thoughts and insecurities onto your silence. And this is where attraction often reignites. When she feels that shift, she starts replaying moments in her head, trying to figure out when things changed. She starts remembering the times she enjoyed your attention, and because she can't just get it anymore, it becomes more valuable in her mind. That's how scarcity works. It forces people to reevaluate what they've been taking for granted. But remember, the goal here isn't to make her chase you. The goal is to reclaim the balance of value in the connection. If she chases, that's a side effect, not the mission. The mission is to stop leaking value through overexposure, because every time you overgive your attention, you're not just lowering your perceived worth to her. You're training yourself to believe you have to overgive to be liked. That's a dangerous habit that will hurt you in every relationship you ever have. So if you take anything from this, let it be this: your presence is a gift, not a given. The more you treat it that way, the more others will too. Scarcity isn't about playing hard to get. It's about actually being hard to get because you have a full, meaningful life that doesn't pause just because someone isn't texting you back. When you truly internalize that, you stop worrying about whether she's thinking about you, and you start focusing on living in a way that makes you worth thinking about. And when you do that, you'll be amazed at how often people start coming to you instead of you chasing them. Because here's the truth, people don't crave what's handed to them on a silver platter every single day. They crave what they have to earn. And when your attention has to be earned, it becomes something she can't just take for granted. So the next time you feel the urge to fill the silence with another text, remember this: scarcity is not loss, it's leverage. And when you understand how to use it, you'll never have to beg for anyone's attention again. There's a part of human connection that most people never think about because they're too focused on the immediate. How do I fix this right now? How do I make her respond right now? How do I get her to change her mind right now? But relationships, especially when they're strained, don't work on right now. They work on patterns. They work on emotional climates, and when the climate has shifted to tension, frustration, or indifference, the most powerful move you can make isn't more contact, it's space. Here's the problem: when emotions are high, logic goes out the window. You might think you're having a rational conversation, but if there's underlying resentment, disappointment, or even boredom, every word you send through that phone is getting filtered through a lens that distorts your intentions. What you meant as, "Hey, just thinking of you," might land as, "Why are you bothering me?" And you can't talk someone out of a lens they're wearing in the moment. You have to wait until the lens changes. That's what space does. It gives time for the lens to reset. Think of it like a snow globe. When emotions are stirred up, it's like you've just shaken it. Everything is swirling, chaotic, unclear. No matter how much you try to look inside, you can't see the picture. But if you just set the snow globe down and let it be still, everything starts to settle. The same happens in relationships. Space lets emotions settle so the truth underneath can be seen again. When you keep pushing for contact during a heated or distant phase, you're not giving her a chance to miss you, to remember the good moments, or to feel anything other than the irritation or indifference she's already feeling. And when someone's emotional state toward you is negative, more exposure doesn't fix it, it amplifies it. That's why so many people dig themselves into deeper holes trying to text their way out of tension. They're trying to solve a long-term emotional imbalance with short-term reassurance. It doesn't work. Space also resets you. Right now, if you're honest, you're not thinking clearly either. You're operating from a place of need, from a place of "I have to get her to respond so I can feel okay." That's dangerous because it means your mood and self-worth are dependent on what she does or doesn't do. And that's how people lose themselves in relationships. They stop being the grounded, independent person they were, and start being a reaction to someone else's behavior. Taking space puts you back in control of your emotional state. It gives you a buffer where her mood doesn't dictate your mood. You start to remember who you are outside of her responses. You get perspective. Maybe you start to realize you've been tolerating behavior that doesn't actually match your standards. Maybe you see that you've been overinvesting in someone who isn't meeting you halfway. Or maybe you realize you were blowing small things out of proportion because you were too close to them. That clarity only comes when you step back. Another thing most people don't realize is that emotional reset through space often changes the story the other person tells themselves about you. Right now, if she's pulling away, she's built a mental narrative about why. It might be that you're too available, too pushy, too emotionally reactive, or maybe she just feels meh. Because the connection has been overexposed, if you keep showing up in the same way, you reinforce that narrative. But when you step back, she has to reevaluate. You're no longer fitting neatly into the story she's been telling herself. You've introduced uncertainty, and uncertainty, when paired with even a little nostalgia, can reignite attraction. It's important to understand that space is not the same as ghosting. Ghosting is about vanishing without care. Space is about intentionally stepping back to protect the connection from further damage and to give it the possibility of renewal. You're not slamming the door, you're letting the room breathe, you're not cutting her out, you're just removing the constant pressure that's suffocating whatever good feelings are left. Here's where discipline comes in. Space only works if you truly commit to it. If you step back for 3 days and then cave because you just wanted to check in, you've not only reset the clock, you've also shown that your space was a tactic, not a genuine decision. People can feel the difference. Real space has weight because it's rooted in self-respect, not in trying to provoke a reaction. And yes, sometimes space will reveal that the connection is already over. She might not reach out. She might not notice in the way you hoped. That's painful, but it's also truth. And truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is better than living in a cycle of false hope and self-betrayal. If she doesn't come back after you've given the connection room to breathe, she was already gone. You were just delaying acceptance by staying in constant contact. There's also a deeper psychological mechanism at play here, the contrast effect. When you're always present, there's no contrast, no before and after for her to feel. Space creates contrast. It forces her to compare life with your presence to life without it. And if your presence was genuinely valuable, that contrast works in your favor. But she can't feel the difference if you never step away. In this way, space is not only about protecting yourself, it's about giving her the opportunity to appreciate you. People can't appreciate what they're drowning in. They need air. They need the tension of distance to remember the comfort of closeness. The irony is that the very thing you're afraid will make her forget you, your absence, is often the thing that makes her remember you most vividly. Because in absence, she's not reacting to your current behavior. She's replaying memories. And if those memories are good, they grow warmer in hindsight. But again, that only happens if you give her the silence and space to access them. Space also rebalances the emotional scale between you. If you've been the one constantly investing, constantly trying, constantly bridging the gap, the scales are tilted. By stepping back, you force the other person to either meet you in the middle or let the connection die. And as harsh as that sounds, it's the only way to truly know where you stand. You have to get comfortable with the idea that not every relationship or potential relationship will survive space. But here's the liberating truth: you don't want the ones that can't. If a bond can't handle a little distance, it was never built to last. And if it can handle it, it will come back stronger, with more mutual respect and clarity than before. The hardest part, of course, is enduring the silence. Your mind will play tricks on you. It will tell you she's forgetting you, replacing you, living her best life without a second thought about you. But you can't take those thoughts at face value. They're just your fear talking. And fear should never be the thing that dictates your behavior in relationships. What dictates your behavior should be standards. Standards for how much effort you give without reciprocity. Standards for how you allow yourself to be treated. Standards for not letting temporary emotions push you into permanent mistakes. And one of those standards should be this: when the emotional climate turns toxic, I will give it space before I try to fix it. Because fixing something when you're both in a reactive state is like trying to paint a wall in the middle of a thunderstorm. It's messy, it's ineffective, and you'll probably make it worse. But if you wait for the storm to pass, if you let things dry out, you can work with a clean surface. That's what space does. It clears the weather. So don't see space as giving up. See it as giving the connection a chance to breathe again. See it as giving yourself a chance to remember who you are without the noise. See it as the ultimate test of whether what you have is real or just a comfort habit for both of you. And most importantly, remember this: the right person won't forget you just because you gave them room. The wrong person will. And either way, you win because you stop fighting for someone who is never going to stand next to you in the first place.